I'm Elena Voss, 32, a registered nurse in Portland, Oregon. For 3 years, I worked double shifts and lived on ramen noodles, sending every spare dollar to my stepmother Vivian to help care for my dying father. When Dad passed last month, I expected his modest inheritance would at least cover my credit card debt from all those emergency flights home. Instead, I discovered that Vivian had already spent it all, and she'd been lying about Dad's condition for over a year. The man I'd been desperately trying to save had actually died 18 months ago. The woman I'd trusted with my father's care had been cashing his Social Security checks, using his bank accounts, and manipulating me into funding her gambling addiction while I grieved a ghost. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story gets much darker before justice is served. Vivian Cross entered our lives when I was 16 and my father, Otto Voss, was drowning in grief after Mom's cancer death. Where Mom had been quiet and thoughtful, Vivian was vibrant and social. She organized neighborhood barbecues, remembered everyone's birthdays, and slowly coaxed Dad back to life. At first, I resented her. No one could replace Mom. But Vivian won me over with small gestures, helping with college applications, defending me when Dad was being overprotective, teaching me to do my makeup before prom. When Dad married her 2 years later, I genuinely felt like I was gaining a mother, not losing one. Vivian was a seamstress who ran alterations out of her home studio. She wasn't wealthy, but she was resourceful and warm. Dad, a retired postal worker with a modest pension, seemed happier than he'd been since Mom's death. They moved to a small house in Bend, Oregon, and settled into quiet retirement. I moved to Portland for nursing school, then stayed for work. Dad and I talked weekly, and Vivian always grabbed the phone to chat about my dating life or career. She felt like real family. When Dad started showing signs of dementia at 71, Vivian became his devoted caregiver. She updated me regularly about his decline, missed medications, confusion, wandering episodes. The calls grew more frequent and more desperate. "Elena, honey, I don't know how much longer I can do this alone," she'd say, voice breaking. "He doesn't remember me some days. The doctor says it's progressing faster than expected." The financial request started small. "Elena, your dad fell and broke his walker. Insurance won't cover the upgraded model he needs. Could you help with the $300 difference?" Of course I could. Dad had helped me through college. "Then, the neurologist wants to try a new medication that's not fully covered. It's $400 a month, but it might slow the progression. And, I had to quit my alterations business to care for him full-time. We're short on the mortgage this month. Just $800 to keep us current." Each request came with detailed explanations, insurance forms, medical bills. Vivian was organized and transparent. She sent photos of Dad looking frail and confused, updates from doctor visits, medication schedules that showed his complex needs. I was making $65,000 as a nurse, living in an expensive city. But Dad had sacrificed for me, and now it was my turn. I picked up overtime shifts, moved to a cheaper apartment, canceled my gym membership. Every month, I sent $1,200 to $2,000 to help with Dad's care. "You're such a good daughter," Vivian would sob during our calls. "I don't know what we'd do without you. Your father is so lucky to have you, even if he can't always remember it." The guilt was crushing. I was living my life in Portland while Dad suffered in confusion and Vivian sacrificed everything to care for him. The least I could do was help financially. Over 3 years, I sent $68,000. My credit cards maxed out. My savings account emptied. I ate generic cereal for dinner and walked to work to save gas money, telling myself it was temporary. Once Dad passed, and we all knew he was dying, I'd inherit his house and life insurance. I could pay off my debts and get back on track. March 15, 2024. I was finishing a 12-hour shift in the ICU when my phone rang. Vivian's name on the screen, calling later than usual. "Elena," she whispered, voice heavy with tears. "Your father. He passed away this afternoon. Peacefully, in his sleep. I'm so sorry, honey. The floor tilted under my feet. I'd known this call was coming for months, but it still hit like a physical blow. Dad was gone. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who walked me down the aisle at my wedding to my ex-husband, who called me his little nurse with such pride, gone. I'll catch the first flight out, I managed. Don't worry about arrangements. We'll handle everything together. Actually, Vivian's voice was strange. Your father was very specific about his wishes. He wanted immediate cremation, no service. He didn't want people seeing him that way. The funeral home is handling everything tomorrow. Tomorrow? But I haven't said goodbye. Elena, I know this is hard, but he made me promise. He said he wanted to be remembered as he was, not as the disease made him. Please respect his wishes. Something felt wrong, but grief made thinking difficult. Dad had always been private about personal things. Maybe this was how he wanted it. What about his will? The inheritance? A long pause. Honey, we need to talk about that. Your father's medical bills were enormous. The experimental treatments, the home modifications, the specialized care. Everything went to keeping him comfortable. There's nothing left. I'm actually facing bankruptcy. The words didn't make sense. Dad had a life insurance policy worth $200,000. His house was paid off. His pension had continued throughout his illness. Vivian, what about the life insurance? The house? Elena, I know you've been so generous, but the reality is. Your father spent everything on his care. The insurance went to medical debts. I had to take a reverse mortgage on the house to pay for his needs. I'm losing it next month. I hung up and called Dad's insurance company directly. After being transferred 3 times and providing my social security number as a beneficiary, a representative named Robert gave me information that made my blood freeze. Ms. Voss, I show that your father, Otto Voss, passed away on September 22, 2022. The life insurance claim was processed and paid out in October of that year. That's impossible. He just died today. Ma'am, I'm looking at the death certificate right here. Otto Voss died September 22, 2022, cause of death listed as complications from dementia. The beneficiary, Vivian Cross Voss, received the full $200,000 payout. The room spun. September 2022. 18 months ago. But I'd been sending money for Dad's care for 6 months after that date. I'd been talking to Vivian about his condition, his treatments, his decline. Are you certain about this date? Absolutely. I can email you a copy of our records if you're an authorized party. I was an authorized party. The documents arrived in my inbox 10 minutes later. Dad's death certificate, clear as day. September 22, 2022. 18 months ago. I called the funeral home in Bend, hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. Riverside Funeral Services, this is Patricia. Hi, this is Elena Voss. My stepmother said you're handling arrangements for my father, Otto Voss, who passed today. I'm sorry, could you spell that last name? I don't show any current arrangements for anyone by that name. Voss. Otto Voss. My stepmother is Vivian Cross Voss. Let me check our recent records. No, ma'am. We haven't had any arrangements today for anyone by those names. Are you sure about the funeral home? I called 3 more funeral homes in Bend. None had arrangements for Otto Voss. Because Otto Voss had died a year and a half ago. I pulled up every email Vivian had sent over the past 18 months. Photos of Dad looking confused and frail. Medical bills. Insurance documents. All fabricated or from before his actual death. The photos were real, but old. I reverse searched one image and found it on a dementia awareness website, dated 2 years ago. Vivian had been downloading stock photos of elderly men and claiming they were Dad. The medical bills were sophisticated forgeries. She'd even created fake letterhead for Dr. Morrison, Dad's neurologist. When I called his office, they confirmed Otto Voss had been a patient but had died in September 2022. I spent that night reconstructing the timeline. Dad had actually died on September 22, 2022, just as the insurance company said. But Vivian had continued texting me from his phone, sending me updates about his condition, requesting money for his care. She'd received the $200,000 life insurance payout and used it to fund an elaborate deception. For 18 months, I'd been mourning and supporting a dead man while Vivian lived off his money and mine. I drove to Bend the next morning, a 6-hour trip through my own rage and disbelief. Dad's house was empty, a "sold" sign on the lawn. According to county records, Vivian had sold it 11 months ago for $380,000. The neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was working in her garden when I pulled up. "Elena. Oh honey, I'm so sorry about your father. Such a gentle man. We miss seeing him putter around his roses." "Mrs. Patterson, when exactly did my father pass away?" She looked confused. "Well, it was. Let me think. September, maybe October of 2022. Vivian held a small memorial service in the backyard. Just a few neighbors. She said you couldn't make it because of work. There it was. The truth from someone who had no reason to lie. Where is Vivian now?" "Oh, she moved to Las Vegas right after she sold the house. Said she needed a fresh start. We get Christmas cards, but that's about it." "Las Vegas." "Of course. I spent the day gathering evidence. Dad's death certificate from the county clerk. The house sale records. Bank statements I obtained as his daughter, showing Vivian had drained his accounts after his death. The insurance payout records. Then I started tracking her spending. Vivian had been sloppy with her social media after the house sale. Photos from Vegas casinos, expensive restaurants, shopping trips. All funded by Dad's inheritance and my monthly contributions. One post made my stomach turn, a photo of Vivian at a blackjack table, captioned, "When you're hot, you're hot." #LuckyStreak #VegasLife. The timestamp was 3 months after Dad's actual death, right when she'd called me crying about needing money for his experimental treatments. I used my vacation days to fly to Las Vegas. Vivian was living in a luxury apartment complex near the Strip, according to the address on her Christmas card to Mrs. Patterson. She answered the door in silk pajamas at 2 p.m., her face pale with shock. "Elena. What? What are you doing here?" "We need to talk about Dad, Vivian. About when he really died." Her face cycled through emotions, confusion, denial, calculation. She'd been caught, and she knew it. "Come in," she said quietly. The apartment was lavish, marble counters, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture. This was where my money had gone. Where Dad's inheritance had been spent. "He died in September 2022, didn't he?" I said, sitting across from her in the living room. Vivian's shoulders sagged. "Elena, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you lied to me for 18 months. How you made me believe my father was suffering while you were living it up in Vegas. How you stole $68,000 from me while I ate ramen and worked double shifts." She started crying, the same manipulative tears I'd heard over the phone for 3 years. "I was going to tell you. I was going to pay you back. After Otto died, I was so lost. I'd given up everything to care for him, and suddenly I was alone with all this money. I thought I could make it grow, maybe surprise you with even more than the inheritance would have been, by gambling. I was winning at first. I turned the $200,000 into almost $400,000. I was going to give you half, Elena. More than half. But then I hit a bad streak, and I panicked. I thought if I could just keep you from asking questions for a while, I could win it back. The logic of addiction. Always one more bet away from fixing everything. So you decided to lie about Dad being alive? To make me send you money every month while you gambled away his inheritance? I was desperate. I'd lost almost everything. Your monthly help was the only thing keeping me afloat. I kept thinking I'd hit big and be able to pay you back with interest. Dad trusted you, Vivian. I trusted you. We both loved you like family. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. But Elena, I'm your family too. We can fix this. I'll go to counseling, get help with the gambling. We can work out a payment plan. No. I stood up, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. We're not family anymore. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie about a loved one's death for 18 months. I pulled out my phone and called the Las Vegas Police Department. The criminal case was straightforward. Vivian had committed wire fraud by electronically receiving money under false pretenses, elder abuse for misusing Dad's accounts after his death, and identity theft for using his social security number to continue collecting benefits. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, insurance documents, our text conversations where she'd lied about Dad's condition. She'd even kept some of the forged medical bills on her computer, evidence of premeditation. Vivian pleaded guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. She was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution of $268,000, the insurance money plus what she'd stolen from me, with interest. Of course, she didn't have the money. She'd gambled away almost everything. Her luxury apartment was rented, her designer clothes bought on credit. The only assets she had were a leased BMW and about $12,000 in checking accounts. I'd probably never see most of my money back, but watching her led away in handcuffs gave me a satisfaction that felt like justice. The criminal case was easy compared to the emotional aftermath. For 3 years, I'd structured my life around caring for Dad from a distance. I'd worked myself to exhaustion, sacrificed my own financial security, put my life on hold, all for a man who was already dead. The grief was complicated. I mourned Dad twice, once when I thought he'd died, again when I learned when he'd actually died. But I also mourned the stepmother I'd thought I had, the woman who'd helped me through my teenage years and early adulthood. That Vivian had been real once, but somewhere along the way, addiction had turned her into someone who could look at my love and loyalty and see only an opportunity to exploit. I started therapy with Dr. Amanda Price, who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. You're grieving multiple losses, she explained. Your father, your stepmother, your sense of reality, your financial security. That's a lot to process. The hardest part was the time I'd lost. 18 months of grieving a living father, 18 months of emergency planning for a crisis that had already passed. I'd turned down dates, missed friends' weddings, avoided travel, all to be available for Dad's final months. Dr. Price helped me understand that my behavior had been loving and appropriate. I couldn't have known Vivian was lying. My response to my father's illness had been that of a devoted daughter. Don't let her deception make you doubt your own goodness, Dr. Price said. You acted with love and integrity. She's the one who chose deception. The financial recovery took 2 years. I had to file for bankruptcy to discharge the credit card debt I'd accumulated helping with Dad's care. My credit score plummeted, making it impossible to get a decent apartment or car loan. But I was free from the constant drain of supporting Vivian's lies. For the first time in years, my entire paycheck was mine. I could eat well, go out with friends, take vacations. Small luxuries I'd forgotten I enjoyed. I bought a small condo in southeast Portland, nothing fancy but mine. I adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever mix named Copper who'd been abandoned by his previous family. We understood each other. Work became a refuge. Caring for patients gave me purpose and reminded me that not all trust is misplaced. Many of my patients' families showed genuine love and sacrifice, the real kind, not Vivian's performance. I started volunteering with an organization that helped families dealing with dementia. teaching them about resources, insurance options, realistic care planning. It felt like putting my painful education to good use. 2 years into Vivian's sentence, I received a letter from her. Prison had changed her, or maybe she'd just gotten better at manipulation. The letter was full of remorse, apologies, promises to make amends when she was released. "Elena," she wrote, "I know I can never undo the harm I caused. I think about you every day, about how I betrayed your trust and love. I'm getting help here, addiction counseling, financial literacy classes. I want to be better than the person who hurt you." She detailed her daily routine, her job in the prison library, her plans for when she was released. She asked about my life, whether I was happy, if I'd found someone special. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," the letter concluded, "but you were the closest thing to a daughter I ever had. That wasn't a lie, Elena. My love for you was real, even when everything else was fake." I read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer. She might be sincere about wanting to change. Prison might have given her perspective on her actions. But her love, if it had been real, hadn't stopped her from stealing from me for 18 months. I didn't reply to that letter or the 3 others that followed. Forgiveness might come someday, but trust was gone forever. 3 years after discovering Vivian's deception, I'm in a different place. My credit has recovered, my finances are stable, and I've learned to trust carefully but not fearfully. I met someone, Adrian, a teacher who's patient with my boundaries and understanding about my complicated relationship with family. He knows about Vivian, about Dad, about the long process of rebuilding trust in others and myself. We're taking it slow, but it feels real in a way I'd forgotten was possible. I still think about Dad every day, but the grief has settled into something manageable. I keep a photo of him on my dresser, one from before the dementia, when his eyes were clear and he was laughing at something I'd said. That's how I choose to remember him. Vivian gets out of prison next year. I don't know if she'll try to contact me, if she'll have learned anything from her time inside, if she'll find a way to build a legitimate life. I hope so, for her sake, but it's not my responsibility anymore. I protected my father by trying to care for him from a distance. I protected myself by refusing to enable Vivian's lies once I discovered them. Those were the right choices, even when they were hard. Some people see my story as one of betrayal and loss. I prefer to see it as one of love, justice, and survival. Vivian took my money and my trust, but she couldn't take my resilience. I'm still writing my story, one careful, honest step at a time.